All right. Okay, so it's 15, so I don't think I can wait any longer for anyone who's late. All right, so our class is Literature and the Environment, as you know. And it's, I don't know if you've asked yourself what the two things together mean, if there is any relationships between literature and the environment or not, and what is this thing that we call literature and the environment. In other places, it's referred to as eco-criticism, but eco-criticism is an approach, like a critical approach. Eco-criticism is a word made up of ecology or ecological criticism. Ecology is a reference to ecosystems, to ecology in general, which is the study of the connections between living things in the world, whether it's biological or organic, all kinds of organic things in a way, and how they are all connected, and how the impact on one can cause effects on any other or every other living thing, because it's like a chain. And so if you touch one thing, then all the rest will be affected in ways that we know and ways that we don't know, or ways we can see and in ways that we cannot even see at the microscopic level. Okay, so but it's a general approach, and it's based on the idea that ecology being one of the crucial issues in the modern world. We have to start thinking about anything, not just literature, but in economy, in politics, in every aspect of human life, through the lens of nature and the impact on the environment. And so this is where it comes to play. And this type of approach to literature is not new. It's something that started a long time ago. It started way back in the 70s. I mean, it's the ecological approaches or ecology as a vision, or if you want, as a philosophy, started in the 60s and even in the 60s, 70s, right, at the time where people in Western Europe and the West in general started to question everything and to question the social and economic models of their own countries and their societies. And at that period already, they were calling for ways and methods and policies that would stop the degradation of the environment and the excessive exploitation of Earth's natural resources, because they're limited to conscious. When people have become, since then, conscious of the limits of what the world has, the resources for life, for human life, for everything are limited, and so we have to use them in a very wise way, not like we're doing today. And that came all the way, it's also a time, the 60s and the 70s, were the period where people were protesting against the damages of capitalism and consumer society. And it's a system, the system of social organization, social and economic organization that was based on consumption, right? They encourage people, and it's not new. Even then, it was not just appearing. It just became like really the model for middle-class society. Because they were richer, people became a little more richer, they had more money, and they were encouraged to buy and consume, etc. And so it was the whole system was based on consumption, right? The more you buy, the better for the economy and the better for everyone, because it was believed that if you buy more, there will be need for production, and hence there will be need for employment, and so it's like a circle, right? Except that at the time, those who thought about this model did not see the damages that they could cause to the resources, because the more you produce, the more resources you need. And the more you need, the more you extract from the earth, and then the more damage you can cause to the earth, and also the more damage you can cause to the future generations who will not find enough resources to continue living on this earth. And so the world becomes really in danger. Since then, people started protesting. And so you have all this consciousness that was building up since then about how we have to limit consumption, how to have to limit growth, even economic growth, in the form in which it's going, because it does not really profit anyone except the big institutions, the financial institutions of the world, the big banks, the big social, insurance companies, the big corporate capitalism is the one that actually making more money. And today you have the example of those, what we call the GAFA, like Google, Apple, Facebook, what's the other one? Amazon, etc. And so those are the big companies that are today richer. Each one of them is probably richer than a whole continent. Each company, Apple, for example, Apple has so much money that it's probably has more wealth than the whole continent of Africa, right? Years ago, it was $6 billion. I mean, that's what. Now it's probably. Now they're in the trillions. They become really so expensive. You can think of any one of those companies that have so much money now. They have like Alphabet. Alphabet is the company that owns Google, for example. Meta is the one that owns Instagram and Facebook and lots of other things. But they're not. That's not. We only know them through those social media things, but we don't know that, for example...
The fashion companies like Nike, Adidas.
Sorry?
The fashion companies too.
The fashion companies?
Yes, they're still richer.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Everywhere.
Mm-hmm. And those companies have... they work with governments, for example. They work with... they manage, for example, they have... It becomes so expensive to have servers, for example, where you can store data, big data, which we call the big data thing, the data economy and all that. And it's so big that they have to outsource it, to externalize it, for example, to Google. Google buys, for example, offers services to governments where they can store all of this in the cloud. They say the cloud. It's actually huge servers that are so big and so immense that they're placed in different parts of the world, but they are great consumers of energy, right? So to keep them running and also to keep them from overheating, you need so much air conditioning. And now they place them actually in Siberia or in places like in the Arctic Ocean, inside the water, because it's so cold. That's the way. But then again, there is an impact because they are going to overheat. I mean, they are heating the water, etc. And so it's a chain of connections and interconnections that are, we don't even think about that. But they say, for example, that every click, when you click on an image, when you click on a link on your phone or your computer or tablets, it's like the equivalent, I don't know how much electricity that is used, right? Like the whole consumption of a household, for example, for a month. Because it's connected to lots of networks, and these networks are so connected. And so there is so much energy that is consumed by one single click, because that click opens something that connects to something that is somewhere so far in a server, and we don't think about that, right? But we are all contributing in this. So this is the kind of perspective, this is the kind of outlook that we call for, that we, in ecology is essential, and this is the kind of thing that we are trying to see how literature works. I mean, how it works with it, or how it is embedded or not, or how it is questioned or attested, or in any way that we want to see it. And so we usually think of, when we talk about literature in general, is the general understanding is that it's a form of entertainment, form of intelligent, let's say, smart entertainment. Because, you have to read, you have to think. It makes you think, it makes you read, it makes you concentrate, focus. It doesn't, the good thing, maybe not so good for some people. the generations, your generations that is used to images, even mine, you know, we grow up with television, and now you're growing up with computers and phones and smartphones and all kinds of but it all comes down to screens, and screens means images and sounds, right? Right? When I was young, there is no touch screen thing, no, you know, can't touch the screen. There's nothing happening if you touch it except that you smudge it. But now with your phones, you can work with them, you can touch this and change that and do whatever, right? Okay, well, it's interactive, right? Interactive. There was a video of when the tablets appeared some years ago. When was that? 2010, maybe, something? Of a baby that was looking at a magazine cover, right? And trying to turn the page with his finger. Because he was used to the tablet. And this is when the iPad just appeared. And so it was like, it's whatever. I mean, all the smartphones and where you can make it bigger, smaller, etc. Change the thing by just touching the screen. And so this small baby was looking at that picture, and he was trying to do this so that he can see if the image can change, right? Which is very interesting. And so, because it's interactive, you got into a period or an era of interactivity. You interact with the content. You can change it, you can store it, you can play with it, you can do whatever you want to do with it, and you can set it as your background, as a story, as anything, right? But for a long time, people did the interaction in a different way. You have a content, right? It could be a story, it could be anything. But the kind of interaction that people had with books, for example, books that have no images, right? Because there are no pictures. In novels, when you read a novel, for example, or a philosophical essay or a book or anything, it's just text and paper. And you have to focus. You have to sit and read, and people sit and read for hours. And the only interaction that you have is in your brain. Because you think, you ask, you discuss, try to understand, etc. And the other thing that you can do is take a pencil and start writing notes, right? You can annotate the text, you can put remarks, you can put observations, you can do whatever, right? And you can go back and cross and reference things from one side of the book to the other. That was the interaction that existed. Today, it's hard for lots of young people, and I think it's for you too, judging from your poor little reading habits. I don't know if you read a lot. Do you read a lot? Huh? Some of you read. That's good. It's really it's hard now. It's hard to read if you were used to images and sounds. Your brain functions differently, right? For example, I don't know. Maybe you were born before the interactive kind of thing, right? Smartphones and tablets. But the young people who were born at the time of the tablets, like that boy who was trying to look at the picture and trying to push to swipe it, that's different. Their brains is fashioned differently, right? And they react more to sounds and images. And usually that's what it's not for everyone. But they react more to those than to a page that's filled with scripts. You give them a page that's filled with script, they say, this doesn't move, this is nothing, then they would close it. And they would, be put off by the page because it's not exciting. There is nothing exciting on a page, right? You have text, you have a page filled with words. I mean, imagine yourself, you don't really like that stuff. It's so that's why, for example, you find yourself spending hours on Instagram. Because Instagram, you just flip. And the more you flip, the more you get. And you get more of the same because you like something, then the Instagram sends you more. It feeds you the things that you like because it has a profile. It's profiled you. And saying, oh, this person likes this type of content, let's give him more. Let's give her more. Okay? And so if you can, when you look at these things, then you start thinking, where is the entertainment in literature? Is there any entertainment in reading at all now? It's hard, right? It's hard. You really have to develop this resilience. It's very hard now. That's why less and less people read. Now, everywhere in the world, people don't read less and less. And so it becomes problematic. It becomes problematic because the content that you get on the phones and the smartphones and tablets and computers, it's consumerist. It's based on quick consumption. You watch a small video that gives you some kind of, it's funny, right? Some entertainment. And then when it goes, you want another one. And so it continues in the same way, and it's speedy consumption, and and then the consumer develops an idea, what we call a desire for instant gratification, right? Instant gratification. You have a need, you have a pleasure, you want to eat. It's funny. So just like kids, right? You give them one candy, they want another one right away because it's so sweet, it's so nice. They want to keep that, right? And we have, with even grown-ups, adults, develop also that kind of attitude towards content because it's the more fun, the more. And so the providers know this. The content providers, TV producers, whatever, the comedy producers. We don't even talk about TV anymore. I just say TV like that. But they produce more of the same. They say, wow, this is what people want, right? This is what people want, so let's give them more. But it's not just because they are nice people. That's not the thing. They're not doing that because they're really nice and they want to please you. No, it's because behind it there is money, right? It's marketing. It comes with a lot of money. The more you produce, the more money they make. The more you watch, the more money they make. And every click that you do, it's like a cash register that goes ding ding. So the money comes in every click we do. And so we are getting into, this is a kind of a vicious circle that is hard to get out of. And so in trying to convince, for example, you, I don't know, because I'm trying to make a point about how literature can be transformative. Transformative in the sense that it transforms you. And how that kind of entertainment that you get on the digital devices and all the digital things, that content that you get is not transformative. It's actually making you into a herd. Do you understand this? It's gregarian. We say gregarian. This is related to sheep. And so the spirit of the herd. How do you write this? Spirit of the herd. Right? The aqliyat al-qati'a, you know what we say? It's an ancient form. It's an ancient, let's say, formula for philosophers in ancient times until today. They were speaking how people can easily fall into this kind of thinking and this kind of habit and becoming all the same. And this is what the technology, the digital technology, is doing today. Because it's not, I mean, I'm not condemning technology. What I'm doing is that it is, what I'm thinking about is more like how the digital technology has fallen into the hands of capitalism and it turned into a marketing device. Marketing for money. And though the content, the good content, is basically absent. I mean, it's there, but you really have to look for it. For example, if you go to Google and you search for something, the first thing you get is stuff that is absolutely nothing to do with what you want. If you're looking, for example, you look at, I don't know, you put in a word or something, you get like videos, you get images, you get all kinds of stuff before you can actually have to look for pages. And the problem is like you have 1 million pages. You can't sift through 1 million references or 2 million references to the same thing to find one good thing, right? You understand this? Okay, yes.
Professor, I just want to ask you, do you have any hope for the future? Because things are getting worse because of the AI and everything. Mm-hmm. And I think like people have this need to fit in. So who's to blame?
What are we going to do? To blame? I don't know who to blame. We have to blame ourselves.
I mean, what can we do? Yeah.
What you can do is you have to be, I don't know what you have to do, but you have to find it out for yourself. But the idea is that if you're conscious about the dangers, then you stop doing, you try to, the first thing is to be conscious of it. That's the first step. When you're conscious, when you're aware of the dangers and of how you are turned into a group of sheep, because they're serving you the same thing. And everyone, people like the same things now. The same clothes, same food. Everybody's eating tacos. Everybody. That's all you get now. You can't find any more good. You can't find good food now. There is no good restaurant. Wherever you go, it's tacos, it's snacks. Tacos and pizzas. That's all they have, right? Because that's what everyone likes now. It's like where is diversity? Well, no, I don't like that stuff. I want something else, but you can't find it, right? It's hard to find. It's like when you go to Google, you try to find something, you have a million things before you can find one good thing. And then you get tired before that, and then you just submit or you just lose it, right? And so it's the same kind of structure that is repeated, right, in every aspect of life. The kind of entertainment that is proposed is because so many people like it. And then you have suggestions. For example, you start watching one thing and it says, oh, the viewers of this also like this, right? And then they try to... And then what we call the clickbait, because you click and you find something, you follow it, and then it gives you, and those social media. Now, for example, you can't use Google without, you can, but it's really complicated. You have to use Google now you have to sign in, right? You have to sign in with your Google Mail. And when you sign, and most of them are like that now. Why are they doing this? Because they want to know who is using the website. Because the more they know, because you are traceable, and they provide, and they make a profile, cards, some sort of profile for you, with your likes, with the things that you prefer, your preferences. They ask you, it's basically impossible now not to be traced, and you're tracked. Huh?
They track data, so they
yes,
form an algorithm that suits you.
Right, exactly, for each person, right? And then they feed you the things because Google is paid by publicity, by those people who produce stuff that want to be sold, and they sell the Google sends it to you, and the more they send, the millions of ads that they send by every minute, the more money that comes into them. Right? And so this is why I told you it becomes a marketing device, an extremely effective marketing device. And so we are victims to marketing because we follow our taste. We follow the things that we like, and you start clicking. It's easy. Yeah, right. Okay, go. And then you start clicking here, clicking there, etc. And in the meantime, but we never think, like earlier I said, that every click that you make, you have to think of it in how much energy is consumed at that moment, because there are billions and billions of clicks every second around the world, and those servers keep turning 24 hours, 7 days a week, etc., all year round, right? And they make them. I don't know if you have seen how they are really set up. It's like huge, incredibly huge hangars, right? So big. Can you imagine like Marjan, for example? But instead of all the products, there is only servers. Just servers connected. Lots of wires, lots of machines are whirring and making such a sound. And they consume so much energy, right? And they need so much energy to work to be cooled off, because otherwise they will burn, right? And so they have to use ACs, and that means more electricity, and etc. And so they consume more energy that is produced, for example, for a country. Google probably uses more energy than the whole country of Morocco, just to make its servers work. And you can imagine that energy, it's 80%, 90% made of what? Where does it come from? Fossil fuels, right? It's oil or coal, right? It's not renewable energy. It's not wind or solar, but it's more like oil. And the more oil we consume, first we produce a lot more of CO2, and we make global warming worse. Or coal, which is even worse. And also we are also exploiting the resources of the, in other words, what we do today is probably, they say you need, for each person, there are lots of statistics on how much you have to calculate your footprint, what we call your carbon footprint. There are websites that will tell you, it's just you answer questions and it gives you what's your carbon footprint. In other words, what is your impact in terms of environmental degradation that you are causing as an individual, right? Every person has that. I mean, just by answering questions and how much you use of water, how much you use of electricity, how much you use, consume, all the products that you use in your phone and how many times you open your phone, how many times you go to the internet. So you get all of that data is collected and then it gives you the carbon footprint. Anyway, so it's like I said earlier, it's like everything is connected. This is an ecological view. When you say an ecological view, you think in terms of connections, right? You think of how everything is connected, how nature is connected, how we are. Unfortunately, we think we are not part of nature, but we are. And this is one of the main things that we are going to discuss in this course, is that human civilization has been built on the idea that culture is the opposite of nature, right? We say culture versus nature, right? Like human civilization was built at the cost or at the expense of nature. We have to subdue nature. We have to, destroy mountains to make tunnels and make roads. We have to, destroy the coast. We have to change it to make a port. We have to make roads. We have to build bridges. We have to build housing. We have to change the landscape in order to make it a city. Okay, we transform the face of the earth, and the face of the earth is nature. And so we are building culture at the expense of nature. We have to destroy nature in order to do that. That is the tragedy of human existence, because it's based on this idea. Because culture is always seen as the opposite of nature. Culture is tamed, gentle. Nature is wild, right? And untamed, etc. And so we have to tame nature. This is our vision. This is how we construe the world. This is how we construct our vision of the world. That nature needs to be tamed, needs to be controlled, needs to be... This is a modern idea, if you want. Not just a modern, it's actually also ancient. So civilization did not start a few years ago. But human civilization was built on this basic opposition, on this binary opposition. In other words, that one cannot exist with the other, but one has to subdue the other in order to exist. Right? And so we're always scared of nature. We're scared of earthquakes, we're scared of floods, we're scared of heat, of winds, of storms, of all kinds of things. And so we have to do everything we can using technology to stop those, to be safe, right? Because we will not. I will give you background, lots of background on this. These are general ideas. This is the general perspective that I'm trying to give you on how we read these books. The poems. We have lots of short poems. The poems are very efficient in this because you could do that with books, with novels, but we need more time, and so we have a semester that's always short, and so we need only to focus on short texts because in one text you can work very quickly and you can get the ideas easier. Without having to spend too much time on them. All right. Any questions so far? Okay. I started earlier by saying that literature is transformative. Transformative in the sense that it makes us different than we are before, or a book transforms you. You know that. You read a book and it transforms you. It's not just literature, but a book. Yeah, there's a lot of, if you like those self-help books, for example, you know that? That's very common today. That's what a lot of people read. That's what you find. There is a whole trend in the world, of self-help books. How to do this, whatever, how to succeed in life, all that kind of stuff. And a lot of people find it transformative. A lot of people think that they help them, that they're really good for them. And so, but that's like getting, those books are based on getting the ideas that are diffuse, like for example in a work of literature, in a novel, or in philosophy, and use them and put them in simplified words, right? So it's also consumerist because it gives you the idea without the background. Right? Most of those books are based on classics, on Greek and Latin classics, right? In other words, people read lots of books to come to those conclusions. Those books give you the conclusion without the reading the books. And that's also a bad habit because it's like ready-made thought. Whereas if you read, for example, let me give you an example. You read Shakespeare. It's not an easy thing to read now, and especially for young people now. Shakespeare, you can read the plays of Shakespeare, or you can watch them, if you can. I don't know if they are played anywhere. They're still played in lots of countries, but not in Morocco. You'll never find a Shakespeare play. But if you read Shakespeare, you come up with a sense that there is something that happened to you, that something changed in your mind, something changed in your view of the world, right? You learn something, even if you can't put words on it. But you come back with, you come out from the experience of reading a Shakespearean play with something. Sometimes it's hard to define what it is, but it's there, right? Now, imagine that you did not have to sit to read the Shakespeare play, but you go to Google and you find someone who will give you the gist, the idea in there, and you say, well, this or quote that summarizes it, or a small summary in a few words about that experience. You think, yeah, this is good. But it's not you who arrived to that. It's not your idea. It's someone's idea. Someone did that. Someone did the work. And you're only consuming it. You become just a consumer of ideas. Ready-made thought that is there, that you just learned it yourself. So there is no transformation there. Even if you think the book can help you, absolutely not. Because you're just like, a consumer, someone who produces nothing. A consumer is one whose only activity is to consume, not to produce. Whereas if you read the book yourself, whatever it is that you produced will be much better than the conclusion that someone made up and gave to you as ready-made. You understand? This is how literature is transformative. Because the experience, it's not, we say, the journey is the destination. You know this metaphor. The journey is the destination. The destination is not the important thing because the journey itself is the destination. In today's travel, for example, if you're going to another place, you think in terms of how fast can I get there? You want to go to Marrakesh? You say, what is the fastest way? Take the train, bus, drive, or fly? Fly. It takes 45 minutes. If you drive, it's a whole day. If you take a train, it's 2 days. Moroccan trains, right? But you go there, because you're interested in the destination, not in the journey. But the difference between one who drove, for example, right? In the past, people walked or used animals, used horses or whatever to go from one place to the next. And the journey itself, that's why this is the whole idea of pilgrimage. If you think about pilgrimage, it's not the destination that is important in pilgrimage. It's the whole process. When the day you start leaving, that's why people did the work. In the past, when people went to Hajj, they were not sure they were coming back. Because it's a long way and they were going on camelback, right? They ride camels to go there. And it takes them months to get there. And so they don't know if they're going to make it back because they have to go back again. And so the whole thing was the transformative experience of going, doing the pilgrimage, and coming back. That was important. Today, you take a flight, 4 hours, 5 hours later, you're there, you do that quickly, think with 2 million people, and you come running back fast, and you haven't seen anything. And so the example I gave you of the journey is the destination itself, because it's the journey that transforms you, not the place that you've seen. And so this is the idea that the journey is the destination, not the destination itself. The destination is only just a pretext. Okay? So it's consumption, in terms of consumption, the culture of consumption is that it will, for example, instead of reading a full Shakespeare, instead of reading Hamlet, all of it, Hamlet is a play by Shakespeare, instead of reading Hamlet or watching Hamlet and really focusing on the language, because it's so hard, the language is old, it's 16th century, 17th century, 16th century language, English, and it's a little difficult, and you have to really work hard for it with the references and all the things, because when you read it, it's not just like what's happening. Every word and everything is a reference to something else, and so you can't read Shakespeare without having the annotations. There are so many, you have to buy the annotated, what we call the annotated versions, for example, of Shakespeare. There is more annotation than the text itself. For every paragraph, it's in verse, so every a few lines, you have half a page of explanation. And not explanations, but references, because there is a whole culture behind that. And so when you finish that, you have learned not only the play, but you have learned so much about the context, about the history, about the references, about the other cultures that intervene in there. That's why it's important to read it. So if you just focus, if you go, for example, to Google and get a summary, you don't get the point. So there is no transformation. There is no learning, basically, because it's just consumption kind of thing. All right? So that's the idea. And so this is what we call a long circuit and a short circuit. The long circuit is reading the full play, taking time to read it, using dictionaries, using references, until you read the full play. That's a long circuit. And it's rewarding. The short circuit is to go to Google and find a summary of the play. And what you're doing is not just because you use the shortcut to get there, but you're also what we call short-circuiting the long circuit. Sorry. You know what? In electricity, you have long circuits and short circuits. A short circuit produces an explosion, right? If you take you take two pieces of wire and you put one on this side in the plug, and then the whole thing. You short-circuited the whole system, right? Because the long circuit is what allows the light, it's what allows the things to happen, right? In electricity. But if you short-circuit it, you broke it. It's the same metaphor can be used also for what we're doing. You can short-circuit learning by going for summaries. Because the consumer mind looks only for shortcuts, for easy things, for no effort, and so you don't have an education. You did not learn anything. I mean, it's like you spent your time reading what other people have produced, but it's just consumption. There is no production there from your own side. So it's not transformative in that sense. That's how. This is also ecological, right? Everything is connected, like I said. The vision of consumption is present everywhere. It is present in our smartphones because we want things fast. It's present in our food because we don't want, people have lost even the sense of cooking. It's easier to just get something and just heat it, or something that's already made or that's already done for you, so you can just have a meal made by someone in some kitchen or something, and have it ordered to your house. You could call Globo or whatever it is, and then they would deliver the food to you. And so you lose that, and you lose those knowledges. The know-how is lost. You have only the final result, which is the know-how. I mean, cooking a meal, even if it's not a really a good meal, if you're not a good cook, at least you learn the next time that you made a mistake the first time, so you're not doing it again, and then you're learning something. And so that's the learning process that we're talking about. It's the same thing with literature, same thing with everything else. I mean, you don't go to the short circuit because you want to get things fast, right? So, and fast is the spirit of the time, right? Everything done fast, right? When, for example, we were at school and they were telling us Asr Surah, the teachers and the Asr Surah, and they were like really glorifying Asr Surah. They were thinking about it as something really good, right? It was presented to us as that which is really, we have to be modern because this is Asr Surah, you have to do it fast. right? I remember, for example, when I was in school, there is a teacher who was telling us, actually, we were a class of boys and girls like this, and then he went to a girl and he said, "How long does it take you to cook a chicken?" She said, "I don't know, maybe an hour and a half." And he said, "Wouldn't you be happy if you found that chicken cooked in 5 minutes?" She said, "Yeah, sure." He said, "Then you get a microwave." Yeah. But people, this is 1980s, right? In 80, I don't know, I remember, it was 80 something. When the microwaves first appeared, and there was publicity for microwaves on television, and they were telling people that microwave cooks quickly. I mean, try to cook in a microwave. You can't eat it. It becomes like plastic. It's terrible. But it was presented as something revolutionary. And so if you don't have a microwave, you're backward. You're not in the modern times, right? And so, you see, people celebrated that kind of thing. They thought that, wow, this is development, this is technology, this is something. But we realized later that actually it's not really good at all. Not only just not tasty, but it's not even healthy. So you don't want to cook anything in a microwave or any other thing. So it's this kind of thinking that we have to start questioning. Right? We have to question these things. We have to be aware that we are in a trend, and it's a long, continuing trend. It's not something that's going to stop, because it started long ago and it's still continuing, and we hardly think of the consequences of those things. Anyway, so that's why I this class is about thinking differently. Trying to see how literature can make us think differently, how just by simple questions and by just looking at a text and asking basic questions, and we will do some of that. Okay. All right. So now. I'll give you something. I will give you I don't even know how to call it, but it's kind of an overview of how this human condition started. We call it the human condition. The human condition in the 20th century is something that was really very present in the 20th century. In the 20th century philosophy and literature, you think about, for example, Jean-Paul Sartre, all the existentialist philosophy. And lots of people think about the human condition, saying there is no human nature, there is only the human condition, etc. But I want to think of it, there were, I don't want to go into existentialism because it's a separate thing, and it's most of it is based on some kind of an absurd theory that doesn't make a lot of sense anyway. But I want to go more into fundamentals, and what I mean by that is going to look at mythology, right? Greek mythology. Greek mythology is incredibly wealthy and rich in lessons about life. Most of what we do, has already been said and done in different ways, not straight like we do it today, but present in so many things. Okay. Now, the mythology is about the creation. Usually, it's about it's like making sense of the world for the ancient peoples. To make sense of the world, they created stories. Invented these stories that were. Let's say, transmitted from generation to generation. And so it's related to the creation of the world, creation of the universe, creation of human beings, creation of all things, and the rules and how and the connections between them and the sense of their existence. And it's fascinating and filled with lessons for today's world. Right? Okay. Now, in Greek mythology, that there is the biggest god, the greatest god is called Zeus, Zeus, the big one, and then they have lots of other gods. So it's very complicated. I'm not going into that because that's too complicated anyway. But I will just go to the part that interests us here. There is this important figure in Greek mythology. It's Prometheus. And his twin brother is Prometheus. Okay, so these are twin brothers. They're gods, right? Greek gods. They're lesser than Zeus, right? Zeus is the boss, right? And so, I don't know if you've heard about Prometheus before, right? No? Anyway. Okay, so Prometheus and his twin brother Epimetheus. These are the two opposites. They are not the same. They are the opposite to one another. For example, Epi and Pro. If you look at the names, Epimetheus, Epi is before, Pro is after. Right? No, actually it's Pro, it's the other. This is the Pro is beforehand, and this after. And Prometheus is the one who thinks before he acts. The one who thinks before he acts. And Epimetheus is the one who doesn't think when he acts, but thinks only later when it's already too late. And this comes to how humans appeared on Earth according to Greek mythology. Prometheus is the one who created the human being. They did not call them humans. In Greek mythology, humans are not called humans, they're called mortals. The word for it was mortal. Prometheus created man from earth, from clay. Right? And when all the creatures were created, and the human being was created, and Prometheus is he was very proud of his creation, which is the human being. He really wanted to, that he said, this is my most, beautiful creation of all. And so Zeus ordered Prometheus and his brother, and especially Prometheus, to give qualities to the creatures. Give them qualities, different qualities, right? Different things, different attributions, qualities, etc. Strength, fear, ferocity. Some ferocious, some strong, some are weak, some are intelligent, some etc. Some have hair on their back, some have claws, some have big teeth, to fight so that you can survive in this world, right? And so Epimetheus, the idiot, as we call him, he said, no, I'm going to do that. Let me do that. And so he decided that Prometheus said, all right, okay, you go. And so, he has all this bag of, imagine that, right? Imagine a bag of things that he gives. So every creature that comes, they give them something. Strength, physical strength, intelligence, whatever it is. He gave them all the creatures that came. And human beings were the last, they came late. The human being came very late. And when he came there, Prometheus had nothing left. He said, I have nothing for you. And the human being, he's frail. He's like nothing. He has no strength. He's like a baby. Right? He has absolutely no defense and very fragile and cannot survive in the world because he can be, anything can kill a human being. A scorpion can kill us. A spider. Imagine a spider. Huh? Anything, right? And so they have absolutely no strength. They have no defenses. And then when Prometheus came and looked at him and said, what did you do? He said, well, this thing has nothing. I have nothing left for him. He said, you idiot, that thing is going to die. You don't give him anything. But Prometheus is, he was a friend to man. He's like his creature, he's a baby. He said, no, we have to do something for this creature, otherwise it will die. It will not survive. And so he went and he stole fire. He stole fire from the gods. Only the Greek gods, only the Olympian gods had the fire. And so he stole it from one of the gods called Hephaestus. He was like some kind of a forger. He makes all kinds of things. And he stole the fire and gave it to the human being. He said, this is what you need. The fire, of course, is symbolic. Fire, of course, because it's fire. Civilization started with fire. But fire is also intelligence, it's science, it's knowledge, it's lots of things. And he gave us this. And he said, but take care. Be careful with that. Because that can be good and bad at the same time. Fire can cook and can burn, right? It can make your food, but it can also burn your food or your house or yourself. So it can kill you and destroy at the same time. Anyway, of course, the gods, the Greek gods, Zeus was absolutely not happy with this. He said, you have stolen fire. Fire is only with the gods because only the gods have the wisdom to use fire. Humans, the creatures, the mortals, have no knowledge, no wisdom, and they will use it, they will abuse it, and they will destroy themselves and the world with it. And so what you did was a mistake, and so Prometheus was punished by being tied to the Olympian mountain, in a high mountain, and he was there for eternity to be, punishable by vultures who come to eat his liver, right, every day. Because the liver is important, because the liver in ancient times was the place of love and affection. That's why we say exactly, it's an ancient thing. And so every day the vultures would eat his liver, and it grows back overnight, and then in the morning again the vultures come and eat it. And what was supposed to be, he was released afterwards. But anyway, so you see, the idea is that humans do not deserve, according to the gods, the Greek gods, humans do not deserve to have that fire because it's too dangerous and they don't know how to use it. Okay? The Greek gods, and in Greek mythology, the humans are called mortals. He says they are mortals, not because they die. They are mortals because without the help of fire is technology, right? Fire is science, it's knowledge, and it's technology. And without that, humans will die. It's the only thing that will allow them to live is the fire that gives us possibility according to this. And so they are mortals, not because they die, but because they need something to help them survive. And what they need is technology. In Greek, they call it techne. Techne is a word that is used, in English we translate it as technology, but it's in Arabic, it's technia. Anything is called technia. And it's not just high technology or engines. No, it could be anything. For example, a knife is a product of techne. A knife, a spear, an arrow, a hammer, an axe. Those things that humans need. Humans need them to be able to live. You can't cut a tree because we're not strong enough to cut a tree so we can build a hut or a boat. So we need an instrument. So all the instruments were made because we were given fire. We were given fire because it melts the metals and etc. But it also creates ideas, essential. And so the techne, this part, is essential for human living, for human life. Otherwise, we are mortals. Without it, we die. Now, the problem is, techne, or fire, is what the Greek referred to as pharmakon. We call it pharmakon. A pharmakon is used by Plato in one of the dialogues, but he used it for writing. I will tell you that story another time. The pharmakon, the word pharmakon, you have the word pharmacy, right? Pharmakon is a word that refers both to the poison and cure. Pharmakon is both a poison and a cure. You understand this? It's something that can cure you but can also kill you, depending on how you use it. And so a pharmacist, and this is where the word pharmacy comes from, is the one who can take the pharmakon, the substance, and remove the lethal part, the poisonous part, and keep only the good part. What is the symbol of pharmacy?
Snake.
A snake. Why is a snake?
Because you can make medicine.
From the poison.
Yes. And
Yes.
you can kill
The
your
poison can be, from the poison you can extract the anti-poison and you can remove the poison. Because the poison is both a cure to poison and it's also a poison. Right? This is how for example, the antidote to a poison is taken from the poison itself and made from the poison. Right? That's why it is. And so this is what we call a pharmacon. And so technology is pharmacon, but we cannot live without it. See, the connection is that it is dangerous, but we need it. We cannot live without instruments. We can't live without them. We are mortals because we need them. If we are not, we don't have them, we are dying. Or we'll be extinct. We would have been extinguished a long time ago. You know, anything could have killed us. Any animal, lions, I don't know, elephants, dinosaurs. No, dinosaurs, we existed after the dinosaurs, fortunately. But it is important to think of how the things that we have today, all the products, everything that we have today can be thought of in terms of pharmacon. We call it pharmacology. Pharmacology is the science of making medicine, of the study of making medicines out of poisons, or removing the substance. For example, we have the traditional, what we call traditional medicine that's based on herbs. For example, if you have a cold, you drink zatar or something, or you smoke it or whatever. Yeah? But it's without knowing how much is a good thing or a bad thing. You put too much, you get sick, right? You have to know the measures because it's all about that. I mean, the ancients were very good at looking at and making measurements so that they know how much of a dose can be beneficial and how much can be harmful. But if you don't know that, you can use a lot and you can cause something else instead of just, so that's why you have to be careful with that. So we need those, and we need this kind of science, this kind of a perspective by which we judge whether something, so we can use only the good part of it. Okay? There is a whole way of thinking about this because we think about instruments, we talk about technological instruments. We start, human beings started with a piece of with rocks that were sharpened to use as knives and arrows and spears. And they developed lots of things from then. The wheel, the development, the invention of the wheel was really something big because it really started things, going faster and easier, etc. And so we have all of these things that we use today, all the instruments, cars, electricity, knives, whatever it is that we use today, watches, phones. All of these things have a good side and a bad side. But we never think about the bad side. We only think of the good side. Most of the time, we only use them and without thinking. Just like I said earlier about the digital contents that we have in our phones. A phone is good. I mean, it's good to have a phone because you can call, you can get calls, etc. But because the phone can be used also for other things, it becomes problematic, right? Because you can spend hours and hours on Instagram, and you don't even see time passing. I'm not just saying that because I saw it too, and I sometimes get tempted, and then I start this, and then oh my God, it's 2 hours. I didn't see the time. Whereas if you're reading a book, after 5 minutes, say, oh, I'm already tired, right? And then you start thinking. So the approach, instead of calling it, for example, eco-critical, we can call it organologist. No, we say organology, organology, because these are what we call. The word is gone. These are organs that are not inside our bodies, but they are outside our bodies. But we need them. For example, glasses. If you have a poor eyesight, it's heaven. I mean, having glasses really makes life easier, right? If you can't read, for example, I can't read without my glasses. But when I have my glasses, oh my God, yes, this is better, right? So I can't live without them, right? And so I have my eyes that are supposed to make me, to allow me to see things. But my eyes cannot see everything. And I can't see, I mean, even the things that were obvious become, with age or whatever, become difficult to see. So we need glasses, and so those glasses become part of my body, even though they are outside my body, right? So we call them exosomatic organs. Somatic means body, exo outside, outside of my body. Exosomatic organs. And everything we have is exosomatic. Exosomatic organs. They are instruments, but more like organs than instruments. Because without them, we can't do anything. You can't put your hand in the oven to pull something that you've been cooking. You need something, right? So that thing, when you put your hand in a glove, in an oven glove, and bring the tray out, you're using your hand, but your hand is covered with something. That's like part of your hand. Our clothes are part of our bodies. We can't live without them. It's too cold, we have to put on cold, You have to cover ourselves. So everything that we use today, technology becomes, all the technological instruments that we have are extensions of our bodies. We can't dig with our hands. We need a shovel. You need an axe, I don't know. We need an excavator, a huge machine. You see those big bulldozer things that we need? I mean, can you imagine making a road without that? You need all of it. Those are like extensions, artificial extensions of our human bodies because they are limited, so we have to extend them. And that's all because because Prometheus gave us fire and gave us knowledge and technology. Now, in Greek mythology, when they realized that they gave the mortal, also in Greek mythology, there is something very interesting, is what a god did or made cannot be undone by another god. It stays. So no one could take away the fire from humans once it was given to them by Prometheus. Not even Zeus himself. Right? So it's done. That's it. There is nothing that they can do about that. But then there is another god who intervened in the scene. He said, okay, well, we have to do something. And Hermes, you know Hermes? Hermes, in French, it's called Hermes. Hermes is a god of justice. Okay? Hermes is a god of justice. He's a god of, we call it also a god of knowledge, of justice, of interpretation. He was the messenger of God, of the gods, because he was the one who interpreted the laws for the humans, for the others. So that's why we have hermeneutics, for example. There is a branch in philosophy called hermeneutics, which is the study of interpretation, of how we interpret the world. The world before us is in interpretation, is a set of interpretations, comes from the word Hermes, from Hermes. Okay. And so he brought justice. He said, okay, we have to give these humans rules on how to use this or that, right? And so with the fire came laws. You can use it for this, but not for this. You can use it for this. And so that's the origin of the laws, of the human laws in Greek mythology, because it gave the humans something, rules on how to use that new thing that they were just given, the fire, the knowledge, the fire, the technology. So when I use fire, it means all of those things at the same time, okay? And so in order to use them in a good way, and so he was there to teach them that there are certain ways that can be done with it and certain ways that cannot be done because they're too dangerous, and we have to have rules for the use of that thing. And so that's why there is rules. That's why we invented laws on what we can do and what we cannot do, right? You have a knife, you can buy a knife, it's legal to buy a knife, right? You go to any store and buy a knife and you can use it for your kitchen, but you cannot use it to kill other people. If you're caught in the streets with a knife, it's considered a weapon, and you can go to prison for it. Because what are you doing with a knife in the street? It's supposed to be in your kitchen, not in your pocket. If it's in your pocket, then you're a thief or you're a murderer. So you'll be taken to jail. So an instrument can be used, but without laws, without justice, we will be destroying it. This is how the pharmacology, pharmacon needs rules, needs thinking, needs laws in order to separate the bad from the good. You can have a knife, but you can only use it in the kitchen, but not outside, right? To attack people, assault people in the street. Because the law prevents it from that. So is this clear? I don't know. So many things I've said now, but I'm not sure. You have any questions about this and where this is going? Do you see where I'm going with this?
Yes.
Right? I will give you. Now, I hope you will remember this. I will repeat this as we go because I'm sure that you will forget some of it. But I will be repeating some of it as we study the texts. And so you can see how that fits, how this vision fits with the interpretation I will be given of those texts. The reading that we will be making of these poems and narratives that we will study fit with this vision, right? Okay. Now, this whole thing, I've been giving you like a tableau of all of these things, right? That basically explains in poetic terms. I wouldn't say mythological, but it's poetic. You can think of them as poetic. You understand poetic? When I say it's a poetic vision, it's a kind of a poetic vision, but it doesn't reduce it because it's also something that is profoundly meaningful when you think about it. It makes sense. I mean, it's like we have all of this, and yet we are not aware of the danger in which our inframing is taking us. And I'm using the word inframing because the word comes from a German philosopher. He used the word Gestalt to refer to this thing. This is a German word that means inframing, encadrement. Like it's like itar in Arabic. Itar. We are in this frame that I explained now about being humans who without technology we cannot survive, who need it, but who also can abuse it and it can destroy us. We need it and it is also dangerous, right? At the same time. And without it, our life is impossible without it. And so we do not condemn technology. We don't say, no, technology is bad. Don't say this is bad. No. You have to think of it. You have to do what we call an organological or an ecological study of it. We have to look at it from this perspective where we know the limits, we know the danger, and we know when we have exceeded the limit. And we have already exceeded the limit by every measure. We've exceeded the limit. Yes?
Professor, I would say most of people are aware of the dangers, but they are kind of living in a denial.
Yes.
Because I've been watching some interviews and documentaries about, I remember this vegan person was talking about how we should all become vegan because it's good for the environment. And the other one gave like a shocking response and explained how her avocados are being exported and it's very bad to environment, how much waste and how much how it's bad.
How much water.
Exactly. And even like in Morocco, if we talk, for example, about avocados, watermelon,
right.
It's really bad for like the agriculture in general, but we still do it.
Yes.
Because all they think about is like how to make more money.
Right.
So the people with the power are aware of it, but they don't care. But we also are aware of it, but we're living in denial because we're becoming too lazy and our curiosity is dying. So we just know the basic information and we're okay with it somehow.
Exactly. Yes.
Just to add to what Hassan said, I believe that the human nature is the greed, and that would sabotage. If you see the plays or any literature work, the greed, when it interferes, it doesn't show us, for example, nature needs, or it always interferes to make it to the extreme side. So in the business industry, and I know like the ecosystem there, if you give them business, you have to consider environment. For example, there is an organization that just advocates for environment when it comes to business. The answer is no. Money is important, so it's not more than denied. It's greed.
Greed.
Yes.
Right, yes, yeah. Greed is an extremely important topic also in this.
There
Because
is
it's,
surely.
yes.
What
yeah.
is the Greek term for greed? I think
For greed.
Yes, I think there's a god or something.
There is Cupid. Cupidity. Cupid.
Yeah, for love.
Cupid. But it's not.
It's like the goddess of love or something.
No, there is Cupid is it's the desire that cannot be stopped.
Oh.
Yes,
Okay.
right. And it's love, of course, but it's like extreme love. It's like
human desire.
it's like a very strong desire for things, right? So cupidity, we call it cupidity, and it comes from Cupid, and Cupid is a small god, whatever. It's a spirit of that. And so it's very important also to talk about greed, because it's all about greed, basically. There are lots of things that we will be considering, not just the poetry. I will talk about TV series, I will talk about films, give you examples about, especially science fiction. There are lots of things that we will be discussing alongside the poems. So it's going to be really rich in references and in things that. Now, when I'm doing this, I don't be scared. Don't be like saying, "Oh, this is too much. This is going to kill us in the exam or something." Don't think about that. This is only to broaden your minds, to open your minds to all the questions that are involved. But of course, I mean, it's like everything else. You learn lots of things, and it only helps you understand better what we're talking about. And so your question, your answers, or your essays at the end of the semester will be much I think beneficial. I know. Will be something. Will be interesting. Let's say you'll find things more like to say probably without having to refer to all these things. But with those things in the background, your understanding will be deeper. That's what I meant, right? Your understanding of the questions and of the issues will be a lot deeper than it already is. And the hope, of course, when I'm doing this is that you can go and search more. I mean, like go to the internet and find lots of things. You have names, you have words, you have all kinds of things that you can search for, and you can enrich your knowledge about this as well. So, what time is it now? We still have time. I thought it was already time. But anyway, so we are going to see. I spoke about mythology, and I gave you that kind of information. Well, I was talking about Gestalt, the enframing. This is Heidegger, the German philosopher Martin Heidegger. We will be referring to some. Actually, part of the thing is we're going to read the first part of a lecture by Heidegger. It's called "Building, Dwelling, Thinking." It's part of the program. We'll be reading only part of it, not all of it. It's just like the first 2 pages, the first 4 pages. Because it's really a good explanation of how inhabiting the world or habiting the world is not just being there, but it comes to, in his philosophy, and taking in consideration all the things I've been saying until now, it's protecting the world. Okay? We will see that, how he develops a theory that building, right? That dwelling is, because it's called building, dwelling, thinking, right? This is the title of the thing. And building and dwelling are two things that are inseparable, right? We'll get into that when we get there. I don't want to already start this now, but this is going to be next week. Okay. So the idea here is that he's using he uses the word Gestalt because he has another conference called "The Question of Concerning Technology." It's one of the texts by Martin. I don't know if you've heard the name Martin Heidegger already. Martin Heidegger. It's the major 20th century philosopher. The major figure of 20th century philosophy is Martin Heidegger. He's an incredible. It's very complicated. Martin Heidegger, and he wrote a lot, and he's known for his book called being untimed, right? Being untimed, etc. But it's, I mean, it may not mean much to you. But it's an incredible book. And his most important question is what it means to be in this world. What is the sense of meaning? Because there is a difference between existence and being for him. And we will see some of that and what it means. Don't worry, I will only make it simple, and you don't have to be scared when you hear the philosophy thing. It's just something that adds to our understanding of the issue of literature and the environment, okay? And how it helps us understand the text that we are. I mean, actually, it's not understand them, you can understand them. But it helps us, it helps enriching our experience of those texts, our reading of those texts. That's the most important part. We have to see it as something that can actually open windows, open doors for our interpretation of those texts. So when he talks about Shelley, what he meant is that humans are from beginning in sort of a frame. We are inframed by technology. What I said earlier about the mortals being mortals because they die without other things that are not in their bodies but outside. In other words, we need something else that is not in us but outside of us. For example, an elephant doesn't need anything else. I mean, it's strong enough, nothing can happen to it. I mean, if it feels itself in danger, it will attack and it will destroy anything that's in front of it. But a human being, if it's in danger, what can you do? You run away. Especially if you have no weapons. But if you have a weapon, of course, you become something else, right? Yeah. So the fact that, for example, in defense we need weapons, right? Human beings in front of a huge danger like a lion or, I don't know, a monster that will kill you, you need a weapon to defend yourself, right? That, in other words, what it means, that situation means that without the weapon you're dead, right? So your existence is predicated on the possession of something that will help you and that you don't have in your body. I mean, you have it as an idea maybe, because you created it from an idea. But it's not in you. You don't have big claws, you don't have big teeth, you don't have horns, you have nothing. So you need something to defend yourself. So we are in frame. We are in this. This is our condition. Earlier I talked about the human condition. This is the human condition. The human condition is that we are fragile and we need instruments, we need lots of things that are not in our bodies, but outside exosomatic organs, things that are not inside our bodies to help us. And for a long time we thought, for example, that technology was something that is exosomatic. It's outside of our bodies, an extension of our body, but outside of our body. A car is an extension of me. In order to be here on time, I have to take my car. Otherwise, I have to leave at 7. It will take me an hour, for example. If you live far, you need an hour to get to the university. But if you have a car, it takes you 10 minutes, right? So it's still you coming to the university on time, but using an instrument, which is a car. And so your being here on time depends on having a vehicle, a bus or a car or a bike or a motorbike or anything, or a horse. But you need something else that's not in you, outside of you, to bring you here on time. So that's the inframing. This is what I'm talking about. The kind of...
Even the car is considered as exosomatic organ?
Of course, yes. The cars, the glasses, the telephones, the satellites, and this.
Every tool that a human being could use to facilitate.
Everything that we have created to make our lives possible, to make our lives easier, to make it easy for us to move, to defend ourselves, to cure ourselves, to anything. It's called exosomatic organs. Right? These are things that, and we have to think of them as organs. We cannot think of them as only instruments, because without them we cannot live. But at the same time, we have to think of the dangers of those things. We have to be aware that that thing also is also the limit. It's the pharmacon, it's the cure and the poison. The car can get you on time, can make it easier for you to travel, but it can also kill you if you get into an accident. Apart from the fact that it's also polluting the air. And ruining your money. I mean, because because the car needs a lot of money to run. You need gas. You need to change the tires. There's so many things that you have to pay. You need taxes. You have to pay insurance. You have so much to pay. And so it's not just a thing that you can buy and go without any expenses. But anyway, so that this is the kind of thinking that we need for this, right? This is the kind of thinking that we have to be exercising. Right? So that's what he calls the inframing. We are inframed, and for him, in that lecture, which he calls the question concerning technology, Heidegger thinks about. He says we have to think of technology not as instrument. If we think of it as instrument, we got it all wrong. It is the condition of life. It is something that we need, something that we have, that we cannot live without. Let me find my... He says, technology is not an instrument, it's a way of understanding the world. The world for us cannot be understood without those elements, without those things, instruments. How long did it take humanity to understand, for example, the structure of the universe, at least as they see it? It took them, thousands and thousands of years before they realized that the Earth is only one planet among so many. And without those instruments, it was impossible for humans to understand that the Earth is actually round. Right? Because when you look at it, it's flat. But seen from space or seen with something else, we have satellites that give us a picture of the world as round and not as flat as we think. And so our understanding of the world is based on images that we have. If we did not have those things that will allow us to understand that the world, that for example, it's the Earth that turns around the sun, we would always continue thinking that the sun turns around the Earth. Which we see, because if you see it, it's the sun moves, but we're still here. But it's it's an illusion, right? It does exist, you can see it. But when we look at it from outside, from space, we know that actually it's the Earth that turns, and the sun is the center. It's probably also the sun turns around something, we don't know. But there are galaxies and galaxies and galaxies. And you have seen the images that were sent, NASA images, the latest by, what's the... No, not black hole. The telescope that they sent last year. This year, actually. No, last year. Not Hubble, the other one. What is it called? Whatever. They have pictures of the limits of the universe. Huh?
New technology with colors.
Yes, yeah. But especially they could see further than they could ever see before. The limits of the world. It's impossible. You're not even beyond human imagination how the world is big. Anyway, our understanding of the world is based on instruments. We don't know the world unless we would never know, for example, that the Earth is round or that the sun is the center and we are only around it, and that even the galaxy to which we belong is only one of billions of galaxies now. And so when you look at the whole picture, you say, what are we again? This little spot in this so vast universe? We're really nothing when you think of it in those terms. We're absolutely nothing, right? It's like insects. By the scale of the universe, we are absolutely nothing. And we think we are the center of the world, of course. And so our understanding of the world is related to these instruments, to these technological instruments. And so we cannot use it only as an instrument, but it's the way we understand the world through that, because it's part of us. It's not just something that we add. He also said, for example, technology is not a human activity. We think of technology as something that we work in technology, create stuff, etc. But that's way beyond this. But technology develops beyond human control now, right? This is the fear now. This is the problem today. It's beyond human technology, beyond control. And science fiction has seen that before, since the 19th century, or even before. Philosophers and writers were writing about how science can be out of control. And I will tell you next time about the myth or the legend of Faust. You've heard about Faust?
Yeah.
Faust. Or Frankenstein. You know Frankenstein. You heard about Frankenstein? Right? It's a novel. Yeah, it's a robot. Yes, it's like what they used to call an automaton. But Frankenstein is a novel it's in the 19th century. It's the 18th century. It's a romantic novel by what's her name again? Anyway, bad with with names. So Frankenstein was this novel in which there is a scientist who created a creature, who created a robot, let's say, we call it a robot today, but he lost control over the robot, and so the robot became dangerous, and so he becomes like, and it was an allegory, if you want, in the Romantic times. It was a philosophical point of view based on how humans are going to create something which they will not be able to control, but will control them, and we will become victim of it. And we are today victim of lots of things. We're victim of science, we're victim of technology. You can be sure of that. And today we are victims of algorithms, right? Algorithms that are simple lines of code, but they can change everything. An algorithm can ruin a country. Basically, by using something, then the whole economy can fall if there is like something wrong in the systems. The currency of a country can just like go down, and then people will panic and will withdraw all their money. And if you withdraw all your money, then the economy is dead, and the banks will close, everything will stop, and nobody. And it's going to be just because there was like a glitch, and then you have a catastrophe that can happen. And so these are all these possibilities that can exist. There was one, for example, in 2008, I don't know if you know about this one, the big, what they call the subprime crisis that caused a huge economic crash in the world, and the world is still not recovering from the crash of 2008, and it was all because of algorithms, and that were beyond human control. The Federal Reserve director in America, it's the central bank in America, is called Federal Reserve, the Federal Reserve Bank. His name is Alan Greenspan. He was a financier, and he was there, and he said, when he was asked by the Congress in a hearing, how did you let this happen? He said, I have no control. I have no idea what's going on. It's all computers. They're connected, and they did what they did. And it's algorithms that we have no control over. And they created this huge crash in the stock exchanges and in the banks. And so many banks crashed like they never existed before. And the economy and the impact on people's lives and the economy of countries was tremendous. You see, for example, Fadesa, when they were building Saidia, if you go around in Saidia, you will see that there are lots of places that are abandoned in the development that they have done there. Lots of places that have been built and abandoned. These are companies that in 2008 and 9 just collapsed. Did not have any money because they were foreign companies and they worked in Morocco here. They were investing, but they have no money left. So they had to go. They left. And they did not pay the salaries. They did not pay anything. They just left and said, well, we have no money. That's it. The company is gone. And they're still there. They could not finish it. Yes.
Professor, I would just say that it's not even behind humans' control. It's actually becoming to control the human being. For example, China is implementing a new system in their country, which basically putting cameras in every corner and do an application for you as a citizen.
Right.
So whenever you go out, and for example, it's for discipline. For example, you threw the garbage on the street. They take like.
What is that called? They call it social credit or something?
Yes,
kind of social credit or something like this. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, you get points.
Yeah, you get points.
If you're out of points, you're not even gonna be able to go to a supermarket or something.
They will stop you at the
so basically,
a robot will say no.
Exactly. So basically, it controls you.
Yes.
It's not. It's reversing.
Yeah.
That's really horrifying.
It's horrifying when you think about it. It's a nightmare. The other thing that Heidegger says about technology is that it's the highest danger, risking us not only to see the world through technological thinking, but also becomes a danger in itself. And so this is in connection again with what I said earlier about how technology is something that we need and something that is also danger, as a danger to us. And all is based on how the Greek gods who refused that human be given fire said humans are not wise enough to use technology. They're not wise enough to use fire, and they punished Prometheus for doing this. Because they said, look at what they're going to do. They are going to destroy the world. And we have destroyed them. We are destroying the world. And we were on the brink of destroying the world. Remember, for example, just think about nuclear weapons. You know, the stocks of nuclear weapons that exist around the world, and that every country and lots of countries are trying to get weapons of mass destruction. You can imagine that if a bomb explodes, the damage that it can do. We saw it, for example, the Second World War in Nagasaki and in Japan, right? Total destruction. And those are like baby bombs of the time. What they have today, what the Americans and the Russians have, is extremely dangerous. They can destroy the earth like, 100 times over. I mean, they can extinguish life completely, extinguish life from the existence. I mean, completely wipe it out of all kinds of life. And so, and that's because it's something that humans were able to do, right? They are called Einstein babies. There is a book actually called Einstein's Babies. It's a novel by an English writer. His name is Martin Heidegger. And he talks about nuclear bombs and how it's something that we created, that humans created. Einstein knew by the way, he knew the danger of where his physics was taking technology, because it was taken by technology. And the thing is that business, and we have not still, the world is not still learning this, because universities, for example, now work for businesses. Around the world, universities have so much money, and you saw the rankings that you see about universities. It's because if a university works with big companies and work for them, in other words, they do research for them. And when you do research for a business, you don't do research for research. You do research for marketing. You do research for business. It's different. You do the technology that they produce, or anything that you produce, is going to be used in economy. It's going to be used to make money. Right? And so you're not creating knowledge for knowledge. You're not creating knowledge for the development of human being, for the progress of humanity. You are creating it for businesses to make more money. And so that's what happened also at the time of Einstein. He used the theories, he used the physics, right? The development of physics then to create bombs. And that's why he became an advocate of peace, etc. And he changed completely his opinion about science and become very, very critical of how science, when it colludes with business, becomes dangerous. This is exactly the same situation today we have with digital technology, because digital technology has been incorporated by big business so that it can be used for marketing only purposes. And everything is turned towards using it for marketing. And we are the victims of that. And the world is a victim of that. It encourages an irrational consumption of content that needs more and more, and it keeps us in this, and so we don't, the young generations become so addicted. There is a problem of addiction. And when you're addicted, you're gone. It's really hard to get out of it. All right. Okay, I hope I didn't scare you this morning. Because this is, sometimes it's really worrying when you think about all of this at the same time. But it's good to think, it's good to understand. So this is the kind of thing we will be talking about most of the time, using literature and using some of the poems to discuss these things and how the origins of these, what kind of visions there are. Romanticism is something that we will be using, but Romanticism will not be used in this classical sense of Romanticism. I'm not interested in that at all. Even though there has some merits, there are lots of good things about Romanticism, and we will mention some of them, but the reading, even though I will be reading, for example, William Wordsworth, is a poet, is the major figure of English Romanticism, but we are not going to read it in terms of Romanticism, even though we have to mention a few things, but more in terms of how his poetry, some of his poems at least, prefigured this and saw from beginning how greed is going to destroy us. It was, at the time, talking about 18th century, has already started destroying humans and turning them into, I don't know, things, right? Not really the potential of the human that was supposed to be, progressive, kind of forward thinking, etc. But more like a greedy, consuming figure. Okay? Questions? Comments? Okay. Well, I will see you next week. The poems and the things that we will be studying are available. You can find them all of these places. These people who sell copies, they have them, because I'm using the same I used the last year, so it's not a difference. The only thing, if you go and ask to get this article by Martin Heidegger, it's called Building, Dwelling, Thinking. It's part of the program. You will not find it in the book that those people provide. They put the copies together in sort of a small booklet, but this one was not part of it. If it's not asked, that they can add it to it too. They have it too. Most of them have it. If you don't have it, then I'll just make copies and give it to you. But it's also something you can download online. It's not something that, everything is online anyway. You can any poem, any text that we're reading is online. I'm not using anything that's not out there. It's all in there. So this, one of the good things about technology is that we can also have it as something that helps us in class. Okay? All right. Thank you.